Welcome to Really No Really, the podcast where Peter and I explore things that make us go, really? No. Really?
Really? No, really? Really? No, really? Really?
No matter what you do for a living, ladies and gentlemen, no matter what it is, maybe somebody owes you a tip. Really? No, really.
And by the way, I didn't know about this, how exciting. I mean, we talked to adventurers, we talked to rock stars, we talked to a lot of different people, and you brought up tipping. And I started mentioning to people, everybody seems to be outraged. And there was, I don't know if people are aware of this, but there was a New York Magazine article where they tried to define tipping.
Why did you roll your eyes when you said New York Magazine? Why
no, I didn't roll my eyes. I had to look down to see.
It looked like a definitive eye roll.
No. Well,
if you're watching on YouTube, roll back the tape. Did Peter roll his eyes? And David Gugelheim will tell us at the end of the show, I'm sure.
By the way, now I'm rolling my eyes. So you have a comparison, a control group and a comparison. So they come out with this article where they're going to define what tipping is. It starts at 20%. Forget below.
Right.
Bottle of water, $1. And all these categories now of service that I go, so it used to be, you sat down with your father and he passed it down from his father and you knew who to tip.
Right.
You kind of knew who to tip. Now?
You knew who to tip, you knew who to schmear, which is another whole thing.
And you knew who to bribe.
Right.
There were different stuff. Like at a nightclub, you give the guy 20, he gets you that. Right.
Yes,
that's not a tip.
Right.
And then there's others where they're saving your life. But tipping now has gone insane. No one has the rules, but everybody's acting like they have the rules. So I reached out to the foremost tipping expert in the world. His name is Michael Lynn, nationally recognized expert in tipping. He's written over 70 research publications on the topic. He's been covered by the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, everybody, all of the networks, including NPR, and now us. He was a former service worker in the industry, as was I. I don't know if did you ever work for a living?
I was. Did I ever work for a living?
Or always acting?
How dare you? I was never a waiter, which is the typical other job I was a busboy.
Oh, okay, all right. So
and not good at that. So they certainly didn't move me up to the wait staff.
I got fired. I ate more shrimp on the way out, and the guy finally said, "There's free shrimp on there. So it's supposed to be 17." And it goes, "Let me smell your breath." I go, "No," and I was fired. Anyway, he did all of that, but he also got his PhD in social psychology from Ohio State, and has taught in the marketing departments of business and hospitality schools since 1988, and professor of services marketing at the Cornell University School of Cornell.
This is the guy.
I'm not even allowed on the campus of Cornell.
This is the guy. This is the guy.
Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Michael Lynn.
Hi, thank you for inviting me.
Of course.
Pleasure
There'll
having
be
you
a little
on.
extra something in your envelope at the end of this, by the way.
First thing I got to ask you is, you're a tipping expert. Why would you become a tipping? It's fascinating. I'm glad you are. But why that area? Why do you decide I'm going to get into this in a big way?
Well, I worked for tips to help pay my way through school. And I noticed that there were people that I thought were worse servers than me making more money. And you kind of wonder why. So I decided it would be an interesting subject for study.
Well, wait. So what I got to go right to that. Why, in your experience with these people, why were they making more money than you?
Because I was really good at the technical aspects of service, but not at the social aspects. And people who could chat the customer up got better tips.
Which is probably why I'm assuming actors are pretty good wait staff people, because they can at least, we engage with people for a living to try and get, our primary job. So,
but to that point, I'm always sitting with you at lunch, and I go, and the most important part of this, are you guys having, the interruptions make me crazy too. It's the guy who engages too much that you go, God, dude.
Well, you have my favorite line where a guy says to you, if you need anything, my name is Steven, and you say?
And if I don't need anything, what's your name, Ralph? First of all, really bad English. Horrible. But it's interesting how wait staff, like you said, gets treated by personality, appearance, race, there's all kinds of stuff. But let's back up and go to the beginning for a minute. Can you give everybody just a bullet point history of tipping, like where it came from, how it got started, and
why it's even called tipping or anything like that? Wow.
There's lots of stories, and I don't know how much they're true. I'm not a historian. People have argued that TIPS it's an acronym that stands for to ensure promptitude. And back in 14th century England, people would wrap notes with coins with the word to ensure promptitude. But that's almost certainly not true because acronyms didn't become popular until the 1930s, and tipping way predates that. People have argued that it comes from an old gypsy or thieves' cant, tipper me, meaning give me. I've also heard my favorite theory is that it comes from tippler or tipple, and that tipping evolved in eating and drinking places as a way to forestall the server's envy. Because after all, when you're at a bar or a restaurant eating, you're having fun, and the person serving you is working. It would be natural for them to envy you the fun you're having. And to keep that from happening, tipping evolved as a way of saying, hey, don't envy me because I'm having fun, you're working. Here's some money, you can have a drink on me after work.
Oh,
and
right.
if you look at the word for tip in many languages around the world, it does translate to money for drink or drink money.
Really?
No, really.
I did not know that.
That's why we do this.
You're exactly. Oh, that's the reason.
We finally figured it out.
Well, all right. So if that's as far as you know, has tipping always been a percentage business? Because that's certainly what we think of it as now, at least in restaurants and bars and food industry.
Certainly, tipping became really prominent in this country after the Civil War. People traveled to Europe, brought it back with them, and then at the end of the 19th century, and it really became common at the beginning of the 20th century. If you go back to that point in time and look at etiquette books, certainly in restaurants and hotels, percentage tip was common even back then. It wasn't 30% like it is today, but it was a percentage.
Wait a minute. It went up to 30?
See, let's address that in a minute. But
really? No, really?
Oh, Laurie's
I'm in
tackle
trouble.
your ass.
Oh,
my
am
God.
I in trouble?
Yes,
I
you
thought
are.
I was a good
She is
tipper.
gonna come in and
now, oh my God. Oh my God. I apologize to everyone. I thought I was doing great at 25. Now it's 30.
So a couple
Oh
of things
my
that
God.
we should set the bar in, and let's get to specific nuggets. People listening, we're going to give you guidance on all the areas that you go, I don't know what to do here. So Seinfeld and Curb were obsessed with tipping. There's the episode of Curb where you, Jason, is sitting with Larry, and you won't share what your tip is.
We're splitting the check, and this was a scenario that Larry came up with. We're splitting the check, and we're each adding our own tip. And he inquires of me what I'm leaving for the tip, and I don't want to tell him. And I thought that was a strange premise. But is that have you heard of that being typical? People don't want to give equal tips. One party wants to be the bigger fellow, and so they want to seem like the more gracious, gregarious, generous type, or
they don't want to be the cheap one. The one thing that's perhaps worth saying is there is no tipping God, right? There's no central authority who
Hallelujah.
bestows from heaven tipping norms. Tipping guidebooks, for the most part, do a reasonably good job of describing what is typical or common. But with the fast-changing pace of what's happening in tipping today, you're going to see people asking for tips like restaurant carryout. It's quite common now for them to ask you for a tip when you go to pick up a restaurant meal that you're going to take home for yourself. And you might think, everybody's asking for it. This is the new norm. And I haven't seen recent data, but prior to the pandemic, around 2019,
Right.
only about a third of people tipped in that circumstance. So if 70% of people are not tipping, is it really a norm? I would say
Good
no.
point. The reason I wanted Michael on was I read an article where a guy said, here's the norms today. And Michael actually went, F the norms. And that's why I booked him. Because it really is getting to the point, Jim Jeffries, a comedian, pointed out, bus drivers doesn't get a tip. Unless it's a bus driver from the airport to your car, then he gets a tip. Hairdresser gets a tip. Dentist, who also makes you look good, doesn't get a tip. He says it's arbitrary what service workers should get tips and what
that's
shouldn't.
exactly because the example I was going to give, and this perplexes me. This really does. So if I go into a Starbucks and I order a latte, somebody is making it in the back. They usually bring it to the person who's rung me up. They hand it to me, and I'm putting a tip in the tip jar. If I go to the McDonald's drive-thru and I order a coffee, there's still somebody in the back making the coffee, bringing it to the window. That person's putting it in the back, but there's no tip expected. Same exact services, but one seems to be has normalized tipping, and the other one there is no. There's not even a system to tip.
Right. That's what.
How is this possible?
I'm not sure exactly why we tip baristas and not counter workers at
Like a McDonald's
service places.
Yeah. Right.
But if I had to guess, I would guess that the barista, it looks more like a bar setting. And so it's easier to generalize our habit of tipping bartenders to baristas.
So it's the environment. It's the environment.
I think the environment it plays a role, absolutely.
But I would imagine in a bar setting that one of the reasons that you're tipping. Now, I'm not a big drinker, but you know, if you're not running a tab, if you're paying for your drink, you know, per drink delivered, I would imagine a tip is like, hey, maybe on the next drink he pours me an extra fingerful of, you know, of whatever. So it's a bribe. I mean, that you're sort of saying, hey, you take care of me, I'll take care of you, and there's an ongoing
suggestion
exchange
of bribe. There's a bribe component. There is. That's bribe. I want something for this.
Right. I'm assuming that would be sort of why, but that isn't going to get. What is that going to get me at the Starbucks? I mean, you know, extra foam. What am I going to get?
So the other thing about tipping is in Seinfeld that there's an episode with the calzone where George is upset, and I relate to this, and everybody listening probably relates to this, because the guy didn't see him leave the tip. And it ends up with George taking the tip out to put it back in again. He gets caught and barred from the place as a thief. So while we were discussing this episode, I said to Jason, I got to admit, like I'm at the pizza place down the hill from my house, and I always do, because he always gives me my stuff and then turns to walk and do something. The next guy, and I always go, hey, and here's a little, I always announce. I make sure you're going to get this if I put it on the card, right? or I put the thing. I always have to announce what I have done because you want tip credit.
Right.
Because you don't know what they're going to do to your food. Oh, that's the guy without the tip credit last time. That is
you get mad, and yet you get mad when they swivel the thing around and ask you to tip in front of them.
Okay. This, and I know this is your thing. So the swivel, doing the swivel, this is the new thing that pisses me off. Because now not only am I nervous about who to tip, but now I've got an audience and performance anxiety. They swivel the screen around. The font you can see from the moon. And it gives you choices. Doesn't start at 5, 10, 15. No, I suck. It starts at 15, 20, 30, your bank account, your IRA,
Custom.
sign it. And everybody standing behind you can see it and see what you're doing. So now not only people who you're with, it used to be people I were with would judge me on the tip. Now it's complete strangers. There's so much pressure. And Jason, poor Jason, celebrity. You got to give a good tip every time.
Well, that's the thing. If you give an underwhelming tip and somebody sees it, you know, they go, hey, some guy left me a crappy tip. If I do it, it's all over social media. So, you know, first of all, I'm a big believer in I am disproportionately paid for what I do. I should pay
Hallelujah.
it forward.
Hallelujah.
You know, so I try,
yes.
People who are performing a service for me, I try and compensate them, you know, to pay that forward. But you're right. If for any reason I don't like the service, if I have horrible service, I still can't undertip because it's going to become a thing.
And by the way, if you undertip, not just you, but the guy then goes on and says, this customer came in today and did that, and there's a story out there. And then a lot of stuff. The easiest way to get in, and by the way, we should do this.
Yeah.
You leave order something for $5 and leave $1,000 tip will be everywhere. When you do that a couple of times, the podcast will get enormous.
I just read that. So I was going through social media today. I just read another person.
Somebody does that all the time, and they get
all college education. Seriously, I pay for the college tuition.
If you could just do, if you like a $10,000 tip for a sandwich, just once, that'd be so.
Sure,
you can write it off. Yeah. It's a write-off. So,
will you pay for the sandwich?
So where
I got the tip.
No. When did the swivel screen thing happen that intruded us, and is it going to continue? Is this the new technology that we're stuck with?
Yeah, and you're gonna start seeing it even more places. I was just eating at a sit-down restaurant. I stayed at the table, and they brought an electronic device with my bill. And again, the server stood there as I had to key in what my tipping decision was.
Why is it since everyone has some sort of tipping gripe or tipping anxiety, what is the downside of asking businesses to just charge us more for the item or the service and pass that on to their employees rather than us having to speculate? Is there a downside to it?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. People evaluate restaurants based on their expensiveness, based on menu prices. And if I eliminate tipping, I either have to impose a service charge or raise my menu prices. People hate service charges because it's a mandatory tip and nobody likes to be told they have to tip. And if I raise my menu prices, I look more expensive than my neighbors who use tipping, and that allows them to have lower prices. I know you would think customers are smart enough to say, yeah, the menu prices are higher, but I don't have to tip. But you'd be wrong. They're not smart enough to think that.
Thank you.
But that's the whole Club Med model, right? Is that you go and you don't tip for anything. Everything's included. I mean, it seems to work there.
Yeah, there are places where people don't want to be nickeled and dimed, right? And so all-inclusive model will work. But in restaurants, people are pretty price sensitive, and they're going to evaluate me as more expensive than my competitors. And we can't get together and collectively decide to get rid of tipping because that would be price collusion.
How about that?
Okay. Look, I've also done the research and looked at online ratings of those restaurants. You know, there are a lot of restaurants, dozens of restaurants that have tried to eliminate tipping in recent years. At one point, there were about 200 of those restaurants across the country. So I did some research and looked at the online ratings of those restaurants, both before and after their move away from tipping. And in almost every case, their online ratings went down.
Wow.
And those restaurants, I know that one in New York, the famous one, the high-end guy, Danny, whatever his name is.
Danny Myers.
Danny Myers tried it at his high-end restaurants, and it did not work after a while. And that's a high-end restaurant where the people can afford the food. Now, is Europe done away with tipping in most countries or no?
Yeah, it's certainly not the way it is here. You would leave change in most European countries.
Really?
Literally just round the bill, you know.
Really? Wow.
And I know when I've done that, by the way, I always feel
like
very wrong
people
when
off.
I've been in Europe and they go, you don't do it here.
But you know what? It's
and I leave a little something, but I always feel like if I left the proper tip, I would be breaking a custom. Or it's a very strange feeling.
The reason that you feel trapped, I think, is you go to a restaurant and they're paying minimum wage. They don't. In Europe, by the way, they get paid vacation, right? So that's included, and they can make a wage. Here, the restaurant owner, because he's not going to pick it up because he can't afford it, allegedly. Right. Some can, some can't. You're now responsible for this guy being able to buy formula for his kid, whatever. And then, worse than that, the guys you're giving tips to in the front of the house, they have to figure out what they're going to do with the tip. Now they got to decide on the other guys. It's up to them to decide what percentage the guys in the back can get. So the whole thing is like fakaked. And as you said, it's only going to expand more and more. You wonder, like, you go to buy shoes at Nordstrom or somewhere. The guy spends four hours with you, brings out 700 boxes of shoes. You say thank you when you pick the shoes. He's not getting a tip. Realtor works with you for months to close a deal on a house, does the research, does the whole deal.
Yeah, but they're getting commission.
But you ended up, I'm not buying the house. They get
they get nothing.
They get schneck.
That's
okay,
right.
But that's a service. So how do you hide the service jobs?
Well, if I order the Starbucks coffee and I go, you know what, I'm not paying for this. I don't want it. They don't get tipped either. I mean, if you're working on commission, right, Michael?
But
back me up here.
But there are a lot
of commissions are like a tip, but they're guaranteed.
Is COVID the thing that changed this whole thing? That all bets are off because of that?
Certainly, tips went up during COVID, and we started tipping in circumstances where we didn't ordinarily.
Right.
Okay. And I've not seen any evidence that we've come down from that. We've come down from the peaks. Tipping really went up right when COVID first hit, that April, May of 2020.
People felt
and it
bad.
came down a bit since then, but it's not back to pre-COVID levels.
And by the way, with food costs up, I would imagine it's harder and harder and harder. You know, my buddy runs a series of clubs, and he said, I can't print a menu anymore. I have to put it on something digital because the price of chicken, like chicken wing, goes up so much that I'll lose my shirt if it's at last week's price because they raised the prices.
Oh, is that why they're doing the QR codes? I thought it was because we're moving towards no touch.
Well, he said because if you got 300 places, and every day the price of your chicken, the price of your potatoes goes up, and you're at yesterday's price, you lose on every meal.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, so they got to be. So the touch screen has a reason there, but like you said, we're not going back. Once you're starting to do that, I got a question for you. Let me run through some categories here. So drive-through we talked about. What about your landlord? Tip the landlord?
Do I? No.
Okay. Dog trainer.
Dog trainer. Yeah.
My wife trains our dogs, and no, I don't tip her.
We heard that. She got in touch. She asked us to mention
here's one
it.
that Jason and I, buffet. You're at a buffet.
Well, you're tipping at a buffet. Oh, well, we do tip at a
Well,
buffet.
no, yeah, you would often leave a small tip
for the person that's
going
to
afterwards.
Right, to bust the table. We do that.
Okay. Girl Scout cookie seller. They're sitting at the table. You're buying Girl Scouts. It may look bad for a 50-year-old guy to go, here's a little something for you. What's the etiquette of tipping there?
Wouldn't tip. I wouldn't even think of tipping.
Have you ever tried to tip a Girl Scout?
I'm guessing by next year they'll have touch screens. They'll be swinging it around going 15, 20, 40.
Well, wait, before you get into I'm sure you have more that are off but tell me, if you can, maybe there's because I was surprised to hear that. So the average now expected gratuity for a wait person in a restaurant is 30%?
Oh, in New York City. In upscale restaurants.
In upscale restaurants.
Yeah.
But outside
People
of that,
are arguing that 20 is kind of the minimal tip nowadays.
There you go.
Okay.
25 is a normal tip, and 30 would be a good tip.
Okay. Now
that's not the heartland.
Right. I gotcha. But I want to run like certain people that we are used to tipping. So what, like a bellman? What's? Do you know what the average is?
Again,
depends on the hotel.
I'm not an etiquette expert, right?
Right.
I would tip $2 to $3 a bag.
Okay. What about a cab driver?
20%.
20%.
How about Uber?
Same thing.
20%.
20%. Housekeeper at the hotel, generally?
$3 to $5 a night.
Okay. Barber or hairstylist?
20%.
Food delivery?
Depends. Like for a pizza, $3 to $5.
How about a pizza in Minnesota in the winter?
I
mean, the
would
guy had
never
to go through
in Minnesota in the winter. All I can give you is what I would do,
Right.
right?
But,
I
I figure you've got your finger on the pulse, Michael. That's what I'm thinking.
If it gets harder, okay.
What about, how about holiday tips for people, like a doorman in an upscale building?
My understanding is that it's quite common to tip them, but I've never lived in an upscale building.
All right.
Yeah, I was just going to say, relatable to our mass.
How about the holiday gift for your garbage guys, the sanitary workers?
My neighbor used to leave them a 6-pack of beer. I never have.
With the assumption
not
there
cash.
that they drink.
What about mail delivery?
Tipping government employees seems a lot like bribery. I'm not sure I'd want to do
I like
that.
the way you roll. All right, last one. Gardeners or landscape folk?
No, because they're contractors and presumably have already billed me what they think it's worth.
I'm feeling better about myself because I give to all of those people.
Because you'll be outed as a...
No, you know what? Even when I was growing up as a kid, and my family was very, very working class, my parents gave holiday tips to the garbage guys, the mail guy. We had milk delivery back then too. So all those guys got
but be honest
holiday
with,
tips,
be
and
honest
I've
with,
always carried on.
Be honest with me, but the conversation in your house was you got to give the garbage guy more than that because he's going to leave stuff. He's going to make. There was always a rationale behind. You did it, but there was a rationale.
No, to tell you the truth, I don't even know if everybody on our block was doing it. It was something that my parents believed in. Maybe they grew up with it to some degree, but they always felt that the people who are performing a service for you year round,
so did
at the end of the year should get.
So did mine, but there was always a discussion of, I think that's too much. There was always the weigh-in.
Well, it's always a question of what should it be.
Yeah, what are you, crazy? You're giving the garbage guy, then you should give the mail guy. It was like,
Right.
it was a brutal discussion, which, by the way, happens at tables now, at restaurants. I hate that, too. When you're sitting and you're settling up and it's a group and you're going, and it's the guilt tip,
Right.
where you got to then, he did better than that. So other jobs, guy saves your life on the sidewalk, gives you CPR. Tip?
No.
No,
He's tough. He's a tough
No,
guy.
but
You are tough.
Take them out to dinner or something.
Right? Sure.
Yeah, okay, and then
No.
have him leave the tip. The postal, those postal stores. So now with Amazon, you drop off the thing, he has to box it, he has to wrap it.
Oh, the PO box. We
That
tip
guy.
our PO
We tip the
box,
guy.
guys.
You tip the guy?
Yeah,
Okay,
sure.
so that's it. How much do you tip? What percentage?
We give him a holiday gift every year.
He's got to wait.
Yeah.
How often do you go to the box?
Well, somebody goes once a week.
Well, I'm saying to drop it off. Just drop it off a return.
We drop off, we pick up.
Furniture delivery. Guys delivering your new hassock, your new sofa. What's the tip?
If they're bringing it in the house, and especially if it's appliances and they're helping install it, leave $20 or something.
Yeah.
See, I
that's
always
right.
do that, but like a plumber, even if I'm getting killed with the bill.
Yeah.
The guy who came,
Yeah,
who's
'cause I
doing the
always
work.
figure
I don't know the guy back there what he's giving him, how much he's
Right,
taking.
exactly.
So it's
always.
you wanna-
Anybody who comes to the house and I'll tell you something. You talk about the celebrity thing. I always tip guys that come to our house because I say to them, I'm sort of paying for their discretion to go. Now you know where I live. Please, don't do it.
Okay, last one, pot dispensary, since that's a new thing.
Oh, Michael, surely, weed dispensary where you pick up your marijuana products.
I have no idea. It's
Oh,
not
sure.
legal
Lying.
in Ohio.
Oh, good. See, he doesn't have to.
Oh, it's not legal in Ohio.
So the
All
guy
right,
who
we'll give him a-
delivers it
we'll give him a
illegally to
break.
you, what do you give him? And Michael, the real embarrassing part of this as we wrap up here is, Jason and I discuss this. Are we giving you, what are we sending you?
Yeah, do we
5 or
smear
10?
you?
What do we
Do we owe you anything?
I wanted to ask you, where's your digital tipping jar?
See?
People are tipping for online
so smart.
content all
You
the
just
time
earned your
nowadays.
keep,
Digital
Michael.
tipping jar.
God bless you.
Ooh, I
Wow.
like it. Hey, have you ever refused? Do you in places like a restaurant where it is typical to tip? Have you ever not tipped because the service was horrendous or for whatever
That's
reason?
the answer. Good face.
No.
Oh.
You've always.
I thought,
always.
boy, if reading that article where you said F off, I thought you'd say, yeah, if it's bad service, the job that's your job.
I've never gotten that bad a service. It would have to be pretty Can I imagine a circumstance where I would not leave a tip? Yes. Because I've heard of cases where servers are downright abusive and I won't pay someone to abuse me. I've always felt that the server deserved some compensation.
There are some restaurants where you pay extra to be abused. Like the Carnegie Deli was that was why you went to the Carnegie Deli, to get a little abuse.
There are a couple.
What are you
well,
having?
Well, again,
I'm
it's
having
the soup Nazi.
corned beef. I'd like it on a white bread. No,
It's the soup Nazi.
Get out.
Okay, the real soup Nazi place. Did he take tips?
I don't know if he took tips. By the time I got there in real life,
soup
I
Nazi.
was banned.
In real life, you were banned from the
Yeah.
soup Nazi place. What's the name of the real place?
It was Al Yagana was the guy that owned it. It was the soup kitchen
were
on
really
I think
banned.
54th and 8th.
And why were you banned?
For a very good reason, and I do understand. The episode made him very famous, and it did wonders for the soup kitchen. But Al, I don't know if he or his family, but they were survivors of the Holocaust.
Got it. So we didn't want the name
And
Nazi.
we called him a soup Nazi.
Oh, so
and
Jerry, so the whole
he did
show was
not like that. And I was there like a year or two after we aired that episode, and somebody said, "Hey Al, it's the kid from the show," and he went, "Get out." Get out.
in art imitating real life.
Yeah.
So before you go, the one way around all of this stuff, the big loophole, cash. They don't swivel the screen. If you're going to give them cash, you whip it out before they turn the screen, and they don't have a chance to turn the screen.
That's your big.
Yeah.
That's
Oh,
your,
yeah.
That's your
Cash.
contribution.
Cash is king, except now. Lots of places don't accept cash.
I haven't
which
carried
is the
cash
most
in
insane
I don't
thing.
know how long.
This is America. This is a country that was driven by cash.
Yeah, I don't carry cash. I don't think I've carried cash since the pandemic.
Unbelievable. I can't. But excuse me, we don't take cash here. Hello. Oh well.
Yeah, I don't. Who carries cash? You
And
carry
so-
cash?
I do carry cash.
That's good
So
to know.
I don't want the
on the
screen
way
to
to
be-
the parking lot, that'll be a very good thing to know.
Well, and so if you don't carry cash, how do you tip the maid,
Jason,
or
anybody.
the doorman.
No, that's there. If I'm going to a hotel or something, but I'm talking in my day-to-day life.
Okay.
If I'm going to have lunch with a friend or something, I mean, I always know I'm going to be tipping based on.
I mean,
credit
what's
card.
interesting is people are developing apps for precisely those cases where we don't carry cash anymore and we want to tip, and it's a traditionally tipped occupation, like doorman, bellman, hotel maids. If you're not carrying cash, it's pretty awkward. It's difficult to
You know
tip.
what?
Absolutely.
I just thought of. We
And
should
so
develop.
they're developing apps to let you do that electronically.
So now I have to ask the bellman for his information so I can send
Yeah,
him.
they'll often have a QR code that you can scan.
Oh my
And then, by the way, he has your information.
Yeah,
so
he
it's
has
what
my,
happened.
he
with
has my email. I have
Oh,
his
my God.
email.
Oh.
I got to keep in touch.
You know what? I want to develop an app so you can turn the thing around before they turn their screen and go, I got the app here. I already paid you. So thank you very much.
Yeah.
But I paid it to Schultz, who owns Starbucks. Get it from him.
Yeah.
I thank you for coming on, sir. You're a
pleasure
good
talking
man. And
And thanks for trudging through the snow to do this.
You be
Pleasure.
safe. You got a
Take
great
care.
smile.
Be
You got
well.
$1 million smile. So we are joined now. Laurie, come in because I want you in for this segment, even if we use it, not just his family, because you'll yell out something when Jason hits the bell. So Mr. Googleheim, who Googles the things during the show that we need clarity on and looks things up to tell us what was done wrong. What happened this episode on tipping that you found out?
Well, there was a moment that I was waiting for that we didn't hit on, so I figured I'd just Google it and find the answer. A 2015 study published by the Journal of Economic Psychology, it's a great publication, found that waitresses whose customers deemed them more attractive tended to get tipped more.
Really?
Of course,
What a shock that one. And that's sad that's it, that a waitress who's not as pretty.
Guess how much more per year a waitress who is considered to be attractive by the patrons gets in tips more than her cohorts.
You mean percentage or dollar figure?
Dollar figure.
Well, it kind of depends
can
where
you
they
tell?
work.
You have
but
diners?
$2,000.
$1,261.
All right. There you go.
Which is a lot if you're
The weirder part, though, most of the increased tips came from women.
Oh,
Really? That is interesting. I have to say, personally, I mean, like I've said, I always feel compelled to leave a good tip, but it's very hard for a wait person to know, because what I find I tip more for is the quality of the interaction. Did I enjoy them? Did they enhance the experience of dining there with their personality? If so, you do. But there are many times when, you know, we've all had it, where you're trying to have a serious conversation at your table, or you're in the middle of something, and you're just about to tell the punchline of a joke, and they go, "So can I tell you about the specials?" And and they've killed your whole thing. So it's hard for somebody who is a wait person to know how much should I interact. What is expected.
Sorry,
of
I
me, what's
interrupted your
reasonable.
little story.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's a terrible position for them to be in, because they have none of the information they need, and yet they are potentially being judged on the quality of their interaction.
I was just laughing because we can't tell the story, but we eat out a lot, and you know me at a restaurant. If it's not going well, I'm vocal. Because I'll yell, wow, no silverware yet, 20 minutes with no silverware, but I'm good. Because I try and make it fun. And then they always enjoy it. There's always laugh. You turn it into a laugh.
Sure. Yeah.
You know what?
Yeah.
I'm
Say
sorry.
that, Laura? No, there's a particular place where Jason took me to that is about joy and happiness.
There's a restaurant that, no surprise, a vegan restaurant, where they name the dishes things like, I am an adjective, I am resplendent, I am glorious, and he yells
So
out,
first off, taking me there
is a mistake.
is already a mistake.
Right.
I'm going to a vegan restaurant.
Right, yeah,
where
everything about it is
I'm
wrong.
eating, and everybody there is going, no, I know it's a hedge from a lawn,
Right.
but it tastes like a prime steak. And I go, not in any lifetime I've been in.
And
so
my favorite part is this oh, God. He yells out in this restaurant in the height of its lunch hour, "I've been waiting 20 minutes for my I am patient." So So that's my.
And by the way, the slide of "I am happy, I'm not thrilled," and he was dying, and they were all dying. Everybody was dying. The thing is, the place is so pretentious. So,
It's lovely. I got to
oh.
tell you, if anybody knows the place I'm talking about, it's actually fantastic, and it's one of my favorite restaurants. But I'm not going to name names.
No.
But yeah, no. So all right. So yes. What else, David? So attractiveness is a determiner.
Attractiveness is a determiner. Here's one you probably don't want to hear. Some of your fellow celebrities who have gotten blackballed on the internet for being bad tippers.
Oh,
Don't get.
we shouldn't name names, but I know
because-
it's a terrible thing. And sometimes I don't know. See, I don't know what the etiquette of that should be. Honestly, because there is a contract that says, look, I don't have recourse. A celebrity doesn't have recourse other than to engage and go, well, I don't remember this. I thought I left a good tip, or they were a terrible server. And either way, it's just untoward. It gets very tawdry very quickly.
If I'm doing okay, I always tip excessively. And my problem is because it's such an emotional thing. Bad server, I start projecting, probably having a bad day. Maybe the dad has cancer. The kid needs kid. I always insert a story, and I'm starting to project what it is, and then I feel bad.
You went right to dad has cancer.
Yeah,
How about had a headache?
I feel responsible, and I put a story to the face, and if they're the worse they are, the more I feel. Oh my God, oh my God, there must be something going on. Because everybody's got a 50-pound bag of cement on their shoulder. I always tell my kid, when you cut off people in traffic, smile rather than give them the finger, and they'll smile back. You can diffuse by being nice.
Sure.
So I try and be nice, but I do project the worse the service, the more I tip, because I figure something bad is going down in their life, and I owe them that to have a nice thing.
Can I proffer you? Here's something
Proffer.
you could try.
I haven't heard the word proffer in a million years. Look that up. Go Guggenheim.
Yeah.
Proffer.
Why don't you try this? When someone performs a service for you, be it a wait person, a
When you do
bellman,
the hands,
whatever
I
it
know
may
it's
be,
coming. You start with the
right?
hands, yeah?
Why don't you, before you hand over anything, why don't you say to them, what do you think your service was worth? What do you think I should
out
tip
of your
you?
mind? That is hostile.
What do you think is proper? And I'll give it to you. Whatever it is, I'll give it to you.
$1,100.
Yeah, but then they'd be that. See, but if you put the onus on them, I'm not saying this would ever
But all
work.
of a
I'm
sudden
not advocating this. I'm just trying to make Peter have another. I would love for him. He'll do it. He'll go to a restaurant with me and he'll go, "What do you think you're worth?" He'll do it.
Honestly, if I'm at a restaurant with you, I will do it. But I go, Jason would like you to. Jason would like to know what you think you're worth. You know him from Seinfeld? He'd like to know what you think you're
All
worth.
right. This is the
He'll
last
pay
thing I'm going
whatever
to
you
say
think
about
you're worth.
tipping.
And he's
all
got
right?
the money. Lord knows he's got the
If
money.
we're going to be tipping, I would like to add the following people. Pilot lands the plane, give him a little something.
I always do that.
Surgeon, you did a hell of a job.
You know, I did
get me out in 30 minutes.
My dad's surgery?
Right.
I said I got to be out by 4.
Right.
$50.
All right. A cop, fireman, EMT, they show up, they get the job done. A little schmear. Just a little schmear.
Well, but the cop goes, you trying to bribe me?
Right. How about a teacher?
By the way,
you get an A for the course? You get an A? Teacher, you did a great job.
I get a D, what do I do?
Less tip, smaller tip. Well, in your scenario, she's having a bad day. Her father has cancer. That's why you got a D.
I got a D. You should have tried harder. You know that I can't be taught.
All right. What did we learn? Is that what we learned?
We learned that we have reception. We have no idea who should get a tip anymore. It used to be so easy, and now it's all blurred. Like I'm looking at you going, do I give him a 5 when we're done just because he did another episode?
Yeah.
Wait.
Listen,
what do you think?
I started this episode by saying I haven't gotten a salary yet, let alone a tip.
So let me ask you a question.
Oh boy.
What do you,
boy.
no, look at me, everybody. This is our out.
Yeah.
Look at me in the eye.
Yeah.
What do you think you're worth?
You
should be
couldn't
paying for
afford it. You worked for the next 10 years. You couldn't afford.
Watch the
what I
episode.
think I'm
Watch
worth.
the episode, and then tell me what you think you're worth.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you have disposable cash, take care of the people around you. I think that's the thing we learned today. You know what? It's a kindness and it's a benefit for everybody. So if you can afford to do it and do it happily. You've been watching Really No Really. We drop new episodes every Tuesday. If you're watching us on YouTube, or whether you're getting us on the iHeart app or the Apple app, or wherever you get your iPad.
You can
Wherever
never. I want it, 'cause you can never
Wherever
make
you
it
get
through.
your
Go ahead.
iPad,
smooth.
yeah.
So
Wherever
smooth.
you get your podcast, we will be here for you. Peter, thank you. And I'm going to take you out now, and there's a little extra something.
And by the
for
way,
you.
I'll
A
add to
little something.
Jason's thing. Give happily, and I say even if you're not happy, you should give.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
I'm waiting 20 minutes.
That restaurant is
Goodbye, everybody. Thank you, David. Thank you, producer Lori. We'll see you next time.
good rice pudding, though. Is it real rice? Oh, yeah, rice they can do in a vegan restaurant.